You were the chosen one! So, guys, companies are going broke because they went woke. It's not like we could not see this coming. Today's video comes from Vara Dark. Her channel will be linked in the description, so you can go check her out and support her. Watch to the end of the video to fully understand the implications of all of these companies now collapsing rapidly as consumers, especially gamers, reject their products and choose to walk away. And now let's just go ahead and jump right into the video.
If you don't like it, don't buy it. That is exactly what the activists in the industry say time and time again, so that they don't have the quote wrong people purchasing their titles. And we don't. We decide to save our money and spend it on other projects that deserve it. And now, hilariously enough, the Tales of Kanzara Zhao developer has laid off their entire team and put their entire games division on hiatus after previously claiming their game sales were doing fine. Now, I don't like to revel in the fact that people are losing their jobs, but on the flip side, when you tell us not to buy your games and you constantly attack gamers, I can't say that I'm feeling too heartbroken to hear this news. And now we're seeing that Surgent Studios, the developer of Tales of Kanzara Zhao, who worked with Sweet Baby Inc., announced it is putting its entire games division on hiatus. Now, funny enough, this was announced, and we just saw Sweet Baby's latest release, Unknown 9 Awakening. So, over the past couple days, things really have not been going very well for SBI, and I don't think things are going to get any better for narrative consultation companies in totality after seeing fail after fail after fail. But in a post to X, Surgent Studios shared that we've decided to put the work of the Surgent Games division on hiatus while we secure funding for our next project. I don't think that's gonna happen. I think that they were given a chance to make a game with Tales of Kanzara Zhao. I don't really know if they're going to get another company that's going to hand them a bunch of funds. And to top all of that off, when it comes to Zhao, they were handed a lot of opportunities within the industry. Like, we know that this was actually highlighted at events such as Summer Games Fest, at the Game Awards, so they got quite a bit of press. This, for all intents and purposes, should have gotten them a lot of attention. It should have been like a defining game for the start of a development studio, but it wasn't. Though it continues with saying, in the meantime, we've unfortunately had to put our team on notice for redundancy. Everyone at Surgent worked incredibly hard to create Zhao, a game that truly comes from the heart. Their passion, creativity, and dedication are nothing short of extraordinary. There are still a couple of exciting updates coming down the pipeline for Zhao, so I'm assuming they probably have like a round of DLC prepared. They want to put that out since they already have it, but this announcement comes just over 3 months after they announced it was laying off over a dozen people. And even then, they were trying to convince us that, oh, things were actually still going okay for them. Like, yeah, it is always sad to lay people off, but they still had a lot planned for Zhao and their teams were still strong as ever. But it also comes less than 6 months after Surgent Studios founder, what a name, and the CEO claimed that the game sales were fine despite announcing that he was discounting the game. Yeah, he tried to discount the game, but saying, oh no, it's actually doing perfectly fine. We're doing okay, when the lie detector has determined that that ultimately is a lie. And a major problem with Salim here is that he always acted like he was better than everybody else. He was better than gamers. He was better than the average dev in the industry. He never really seemed to try to understand why gamers were roasting Zhao, roasting this team, why a lot of gamers simply were not fans of Sweet Baby Inc. And I understand to a certain extent that, Zhao was releasing towards the beginning of Gamergate 2, and he didn't understand why so many gamers did not like Sweet Baby, but even now he's never tried to say, hey, listen, we understand a little bit better why people don't like this company. He is somebody who doesn't care about gamers, who doesn't care about the industry being in a healthy state. He just cares about making money, and he thought that working with Sweet Baby was going to make him money when that clearly is not the case.
Now, one of the things that's been making me extremely bitter has been a lot of the just terrible comments, especially directed at white males and just white people in general by Sweet Baby Ig. It's absolutely horrible. And if you said these things about anyone else, it would not be tolerated. But they feel that because, they stand from this position of like superiority, moral superiority, they can say and do whatever they want to, and no one can call them out on it and no one can question them. And they will basically just say that they are victims. There's video after video of employees from Sweet Baby Ig, the founder of Sweet Baby Ig, saying horrible and downright RACIST things about people who are white, people who are not African American, people from different cultures, but it doesn't matter as long as if they're not a part of that community of people who are, better than the rest of us, then it's okay to talk poorly about them. Or if they don't align themselves with a company that expunges these terrible views, then they're just as bad as the rest of them. Do not forget that these are the same types of people. Like there's the same type of CNN people who say things like, black conservatives benefit from white supremacy. Yes, CNN actually said this. Actually said this. So you have to understand that these people are far removed from reality, from society. They are just trying to market their brand of control. It's all about control. And then when they do these things and they are caught doing these things and called out, they just play the victim card and they simply say, oh, well, I have a card for this community. So that means you can't say anything to me or you cannot punish me for what I have done. If you look at the whole situation with Mr. Tyson or Mrs. Tyson from, Jimmy's brigade, Mr. Beast, and you notice that we have to basically walk on eggshells because of that individual status. If this was anyone else, they would have been in handcuffs already. But because we have to be very careful what we say regarding these individuals, okay? Because as soon as you're a member of or a part of a certain community, now you have to basically, now you're special. Now you have like a shield around you, and everyone has to be careful. There's one of my subscribers. His name is Tim. And he's been with me from the very beginning of my YouTube career, back in the day when I was the angry MGTOW. He is shockingly still with me. I still can't believe it's him. He's still supporting me on the channel, which is absolutely insane to have someone still supporting me after over 10 years at this point. And he told me a story once where, the police pulled him over. He got pulled over by the cops and he didn't want to stop at first. And then eventually he stops and then the cops walk up. This was a long time ago. Like, this was like almost 10 years ago. We used to talk before the manosphere developed what it is today. And we're not just talking about MGTOW, we're talking about the manosphere as a whole. It was a lot of these conversations we used to have a lot of these conversations over Google Hangouts. So, I know many of you don't even know what Google Hangouts is, but it's basically a defunct social network that was supposed to rival Facebook. It never really took off, or circles, and it never really took off, but we did have Google Hangouts, and you could basically jump in there and have conversations with people, and there was video chat features, and that's where a lot of the manosphere developed. And we used to just hang out in there. And he told us a story about, the cops were trying to pull him over, and he kept on driving, and then he stops, and then the cop walks up to him and says, why did you, didn't you see us trying to pull you over? Why didn't you obey? Why didn't you stop? And bro legit said, without missing a beat, he told the cop, it's because I'm GAY and I was scared that you were going to BEAT me. And the police officer goes, "We are no, 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 no. You don't have to be afraid. Listen, we support you. Don't we support you, and you don't have to be afraid. Slow down." And then he just walks away. Like, if you cannot tell me that they don't have privilege, and this was like 10 years ago. 10 years ago, bro did this. And Tim is he's an Aussie. He's an Australian, if I recall. And bro did this like 10 years ago. Oh my gosh. Talk about hacking the system. So that's what a lot of people are now doing. They basically identify as a part of a specific community, and by identifying as this community, they gain special privileges while the rest of us are given special punishments. But people are fed up with this, and as you can see, the gamers are not messing around. It's not even just the gamers. Look at what happened with Bud Light. That whole situation with Dylan Mulvaney and Bud Light, and again, I'm not saying anything poorly about Dylan. However, that whole situation cost Bud Light, or the parent company of Bud Light, $45 billion. That is an insane amount of money. Like that's like practically half of what some giant companies are worth. Like just a few years ago, Disney was worth like $100 billion, and it's crazy. It's crazy. They lost 45 billion, and they've never recovered. In fact, the sales of Bud Light have continued to go down, and then even Target is now being affected because like Target, they had a section, they were trying to push a lot of community stuff for that community, and basically Target sales became affected because people were like, "Oh, we just won't shop at Target then." And they basically had to pull back and remove that stuff and put it in like a separate section, not display it in the store. So we're hitting a point where companies are beginning to go broke because they went woke. And this company with this guy, he could have created this game without the use of Sweet Baby Inc., but he's a part of that community. He's a part of the community who's like, "Oh, because I'm of African descent, that means, I can use that because I'm BLACK. I can now say that I'm a part of the that community of people like Sweet Baby Inc., and we're better than the gamers, and we're this and we're that. So we're going to make these games that have, diversity, equity, and inclusion instead of just making a game based around, the actual culture that it's supposed to represent." For example, in African culture, you typically don't have pronouns, but we cannot have this because we're focusing on representation. We're going to put things and insert things into the culture that do not exist. You can see how it's now affecting Assassin's Creed, where Assassin's Creed Shadow has been delayed. Instead of having a game set in Japan that would include a Japanese person as a samurai, they choose to have a black samurai. And again, it's not that they could not have a black samurai specifically, but the guy that they chose, historically, he's supposedly was a samurai, but the first game set in Japan is centered around a black samurai. The first Assassin's Creed game set in Japan. Like, these people don't like money, so it's 100% diversity, equity, and inclusion. I've already said it's like if you went to Africa, or you wanted to make a game set in like ancient Africa, and the game is starring a Chinese person, and they're like, there's a good reason for that, and he's supposed to represent the cultural narrative of China. They just like, it's so ridiculous at this point. It's like it's almost becoming hilarious because you can see what they're doing, and there's so many videos of them saying, "We don't like gamers. We want, the world would be a better place without gamers." And now gamers are waking up and saying, "Okay, well then you won't get our money." For example, Sweet Baby Inc., they are constantly saying horrible and horrific things directed at white males, and which is, their core audience for video games and white people in general. But of course, I love seeing Vara constantly calling them out on it because it is 100% an ism, if you get what I'm saying. Okay? RAC, how do you spell that? You know what I'm spelling, okay? RACISMM. You know what I'm trying to spell. It's 100% that, okay? And it's absolutely disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. RACISM. I think that's how you spell the word. I mean, they chose this for themselves. They said that we don't like you, don't play our game. So what are their core demographic is doing? They're not playing their games anymore. Concord is a piece of crap game. It's a horrible game that Sony put out. It's all about diversity, equity, inclusion, and making white males into the villain. Like the bad guy in the game is a white male, and that's like basically the only white male in the game. I mean, I think there's like one or two, but they're all like weak and pathetic, and they basically make them into characters you wouldn't even want to associate with. And I mean, look at what happened. Look at what happened. Sony, when all things are said and done, may end up losing around $700 million for Concord. And it's very true. I really believe what people are saying, that the reason why PlayStation 5 Pro costs so much is because of the major losses Sony is experiencing right now. Evidently, the PlayStation 5 Pro only cost $400 to manufacture, and yet they're selling it for $700 in the US and $800 in Europe. Why? The equivalent of $800 in Europe. Why would you be selling a product for twice the amount? Does that make any sense to you? Usually Sony sells their consoles at a loss and they make their money back on games. Now they're keeping the prices sky high and they're pushing everyone else out. Like, for example, younger gamers are not going to be able to enter into the market. People who don't have a lot of money are not going to be able to enter into the market. And, again, casuals, for being able to pick up a PlayStation 3 for $300, that's a way that a lot of people would say, okay, maybe I'll try out gaming. A lot of people will no longer be able to enter into into the gaming market because it's way too expensive. The whole promise of the PlayStation originally was to deliver, video computer level graphics on a cheaper piece of hardware, which is something that they achieved with the PlayStation 1. Many people don't know the history of the PlayStation, but originally it was a partnership between Nintendo and Sony, and the original PlayStation was supposed to basically also, like, I don't know if it would support cartridges, but it was supposed to do CDs, and Sony was supposed to handle the CD aspect, and Nintendo basically backstabbed them. And as a result of the backstabbing and betrayal, they came out with their own console. But the idea was that you would have computer level visuals, even visuals that surpass computers, specifically designed for playing video games, and they basically delivered that. But the drawback now is that Sony is now shilling hardware that they're like, okay, well, the benefit of buying a PlayStation for this amount of money is convenience. And there are a lot of people who don't want to spend loads of money for a console, they don't want to spend money. They don't want to have to go and buy a computer and do PC gaming because of all the stress that comes with it. But when you have devices like the Steam Deck that removes a lot of those barriers, and you have devices like the ROG G Ally, and we're heading more and more in the direction of having devices where, they bridge the gap between computer and console and surpass consoles. Eventually Sony is leaving all of this behind. You're gonna have one of these companies come out and say, here's a $300 console or a $400 console that's basically allows you to play your Steam library and get games from our game store as well. And Sony is not going to be able to do that. Like, they're in a desperate position, and it's because their games are now failing. All of the Sweet Baby and garbage is bankrupting their games. Spider-Man did well, but they had a lot of activism in there, and that definitely pushes people away. and it's some there many of these companies are just going to double down and they will go bankrupt, and if they do try to change things up, it will take a long time because so many of the projects that are in the works right now or have been in the works for years have all of that garbage political narrative in there, so it's going to take time to develop new games that don't have those things.
And back in May, he tried to debunk claims that the game's sales were bad. The game isn't selling well, also false, he said. I've addressed this on a Reddit. The numbers that are circulating are a fraction of our actual playership, and they're being shared in bad faith by people who are wanting to provide proof that their harassment campaign has been successful in punishing us for daring to take up space. I don't care that you made a game. I don't care that you took up space. I simply care that you created a bad product and that you're attacking gamers.
It's like so pathetic that these people are just pandering. I mean, if you look at Black Myth Wukong, Black Myth Wukong is a game based literally around, Chinese culture, like the story of like the monkey god Goku. Like that's where Dragon Ball's story originates from. It's basically loosely based on the story found in Black Myth Wukong. Like Goku is like a monkey god, and it's crazy because people are like, okay, yeah, I definitely want to see more of this. Guys, look at Black Panther. Personally, I think that Black Panther was it. I feel like there was much more they could have done to represent the culture better. A lot of it was trying to mix in American culture into Black Panther, but I mean, at least with the original film, a lot of people wanted to watch it. A lot of people absolutely enjoyed watching it, and then they took an entire different narrative with the second one and they made it political. So to say that people do not want to watch movies that center around African culture and African heritage is an absolute lie. But it has to be designed in a way that it's not going to lecture you and try to force you into political activism, because that's a very different culture. The crap that they're doing in Western society is stuff that they do not do over in Africa. In fact, they reject so much of this nonsense. And what they're doing is they're like, okay, well, if you want to play a game that's about Africa, or you want to watch a movie about Africa, well, then you need to be in check with your pronouns. You need to understand that, that certain lives matter, like, the whole BLM thing. And it's like, bro, they don't even like you guys over there. They want to have nothing to do with these views. So you're creating a product that does not reflect the views of people in that society, or of people in the society at the time when the game is based either. It's complete total BS. It's all garbage. You're mixing in stuff that does not exist. You're bastardizing their culture and their views, and they don't care. I've said this before, like, if you look at the original Lord of the Rings movies, there's something that we have to notice and talk about in them. The characters in those movies, in the original Lord of the Rings movies, they may be white, but they are not white. What do I mean by that? All of the characters, like Gandalf the White or Gandalf the Grey, he was a different race, evidently, to my understanding, right? Like, we had all of these different groups, and it was not about the color of their skin. Even the elves were a different race, okay? It was not about skin color, and there were specific things like the way that they were designed, their hair, their faces being a little, their ears being pointy and their faces looking a certain way. It was, even even their skin color and texture, that was unique for them. They were not white elves. They were elves. They were a specific group. You have hobbits. It was not about black hobbits or white hobbits. They were hobbits. They had different textured skin, different looks, different hair. There were differences unique to each and every single group. When you look at games like Dragon Age now, they're basically forcing diversity, where they put a black character in there, or an Asian character, a black elf or an Asian elf, and they're not doing something like, oh, well, these are the dark elves, and they have these specific traits that are unique to them, and so, no, they look like you're like a straight-up African-American with kinky hair. Like, that's Jamal, bro. That's Jamal, And it's like, this is stupidity. This is not how Even in medieval Europe, this is not what an African, what a person of African descent would look like. You know, there's no culture here. This is literally just cosplay. Like you're just trying to virtue signal and say, okay, now we have representation. It's a level of extreme stupidity and cultural dishonesty. And Sweet Baby Inc. And companies like them, like Hit, that's another one that worked on the Resident on Silent Hill, have destroyed things. Like if you look at Silent Hill and what Silent Hill actually looked like before Sweet Baby Inc. got involved with it, it's insane. The models for Silent Hill look entirely different than the character models that were in the final game. I actually have a video here from Hypnotic, and Hypnotic basically goes into it, and they show you how in the actual art books the character models are completely different. They look like completely different people, and they literally chose to make the characters uglier. I mean, in fact, James was so ugly in the original trailer that they had to go back and make him less ugly, but the very early character models showed vastly different looking people that were more physically attractive. And what's interesting is that The Guardian, after the game came out, still claimed that the character models were too attractive. Yes, you heard me. Still too attractive. And it messes up the game. Like, guys, the character models are ugly. They could be much better. They have, like, you know, these heavy jaw lines. A lot of this right now is to basically force men to accept that, you know, to destroy male spaces, to destroy the things that men love, and to basically say that, you know, anyone can also be a woman. Because basically, think about this. To be a man, you know, you have to live up to the ideals of others, while to be a woman, you just have to identify. But to some degree, womanhood is also being erased, which is something that J.K. Rowling has said. And I don't agree with a lot of things she said, because she's a hardcore liberal as well. She's not our friend, okay? But she is absolutely right about some of these things. Let's go ahead and check out the video from Hypnotic, because I want you guys to see what they are doing, how they've actually gone in and changed a lot of things in this game. I'll link Hypnotic's channel in the description so you can go and check him out and support his content. But let's go ahead and jump into his video.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, so I got some interesting still shots and pictures from the Silent Hill 2 remake digital art book that is making the rounds right now on Twitter. And shout out to Bandar Hub over here on Twitter for posting it. He actually took still shots of all the pictures, for the most part, in the digital art book, and he posted it. And these pictures are very telling. And the reason why they're very telling is because if you look at the artwork the characters were supposedly based off of, you start to realize very quickly, what the hell happened to these in-game models that they don't look anything like the artwork that was portrayed in the book?
Don't ask questions. Just consume product and then get excited for next product.
I gotta tell you, man, the differences are jarring when it comes to this particular game, because when I'm looking at this artwork, I can't sit here and understand how we got to this point, right? I can't understand how the characters look the way they do. Even James looks completely different. This particular James looks totally different from the James that we ended up getting in the actual remake. And wait till you guys see Angela. Oh my God, the Angela in the picture versus the Angela we got. I really want to start questioning the three. Look at Maria. Look at Maria. Look, she looks like a female here. But in the game, she's got a modern audience jaw. Look at this here. How did we get here? I don't understand. Maria does not look like this in the game. In here, she has curves and whatnot. She's got boobs. She's got a thinner jaw. I don't understand. And then, you know what's even crazier? The close-up makes it even more insulting, because look at how she looks here. She doesn't look like this in the game. She's got the modern audience face in the game. I mean, look at this. Again, this is not Maria. This is not the Maria that we got in the game. Nothing. Now, wait. Okay, you guys ready for this? You guys ready to see Angela? Look, another close-up. This is probably closer to the Maria that we got in the game. You can kind of see it from the forefront here. This is a little bit close. This does not look like the Maria up here. I don't know what they're doing. Yeah, this is not even close. This is not even close. I guess this is the final iteration, probably. This is the one that after 3 iterations of modern audience treatment, the developers decided to do a 3D model based off of something like that, and they just made it a little bit wider. Now, you guys ready? You guys ready for Angela? Now, this is interesting, okay? So this is the final iteration of Angela that they based it off of, right? Which, again, even this doesn't look anywhere close to whatever the fuck the creature is that we got in the actual game. But look at her original iteration. Look at her original iteration. Let me make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see. This looks like an Angela who's traumatized. This right here. This, I could buy this, right? I could buy this. This is making her younger. Younger looking, I should say, because she was always young, but look, making her look younger looking while also making her look traumatized. Like, this is great. Look at the bags on her eyes. Look at the bags under her eyes, the darkness under her eyes. This right here, this is what we should have gotten. Nobody's asking for a hot Angela. We're just asking for an actual traumatized Angela.
Now, don't think that gamers are taking this laying down. And I was thinking to myself, what if they just release a mod that addresses the character models and make the character models look better? Well, that's pretty much exactly what has happened. So, there's a model that did come out from a company, and they basically put it online. And what it does is it changes the models around, and it makes the models look more in line with what they should have been. This video actually comes from Setsuna Ray. We're going to review this a bit, and you're going to be able to see how the models should actually have looked and what they've done. So they've released a mod, and in the PC gaming community, a mod is basically a program that allows you to modify the look and feel of a game. It can change gameplay elements, or it can change character models, or both. And they've released one to change the character models in this game, and holy cow, it is absolutely amazing. So I'll have Setsuna Ray's channel linked in the description so you can go check them out and support them. But we're going to go ahead and jump into the video and see what the actual models look like once they've changed this, because this is a major change, and this is how gamers, again, are fighting back. Don't mess with gamers. So here we have the mod itself, and you can see how they've made changes to it. And on the left is the original version that was in the game, the character model there. On the right is the change model. They call it the Shiny Rose mod. And they basically changed Rose's facial features, so now she looks different. They didn't just change the features of her face. They also changed, you can see like her curves, so now she's more slender. And this looks so much better. And it's not that she's strikingly hot or anything like that, but it just basically makes her look more like a normal person, because the DEI mods are basically the DEI look is just basically destroying how normal people would even look. Like, you know, we go back to the PlayStation 2 era, and you have beautiful women and beautiful men in games, and then we have this era, and everything is just absolutely ugly. So you can see there is such a large difference right there. There is such a large difference when you look at how the character models now look later on. I mean, they're basically just going ahead and giving it a revamp and saying, hey, we can just go ahead and make things look the way that they're actually supposed to look. If we jump a little bit further into the mod, again, we can see that the curves, the textures of the character model have changed. We can see that her face has changed. It's substantially slimmer. She no longer has the wide jaw that you would associate with a more masculine figure. So this is kind of reflects that women are becoming increasingly masculine. This looks more in line with what an actual woman would look like. You know, this is biology. This is what biology is. So the one on the right, it does not look like an increasingly beautiful model, but it does look more like someone who is real, like an actual woman. You know, because women have more testosterone than women have more estrogen than men, and that results in differences. There are differences in biology, and what they're really trying to do is to, you know, shade the lines. They're trying to blur the lines between men and women so that they can say that, you know, this can be this and that could be that, and, you know, they're telling men that if you don't like it, you can go somewhere else because you don't have any other choices, and they don't really seem to understand that men are just voting with their money. I think companies like Sony, who basically have a monopoly at this point. They have a monopoly because Xbox is absolutely DAD. It's done with. It's over. They're cooked. They basically want to become like a game publisher now and shill Game Pass, which is a joke. Well, in the case of Sony, they're like, well, we have no competition, and since we don't have any competition, we can sell you PlayStation 5 Pro for whatever cost we want to. We can keep the prices high. We can keep on putting out DEI-based games, and you don't really have any other choice but to either buy our games or, you know, get bent because that's it. And of course, there is the Nintendo Switch 2 coming out. The Nintendo Switch 2, of course, will not give you the latest, greatest gaming experience. It's not going to be as powerful as the PlayStation 5, but I do think that the Nintendo Switch 2 might surprise a lot of us just because of the fact that it supports DLSS. It is going to be using a processor that will support DLSS as well as FSR3, and developers will get creative when they have those specific tools. The only big difference, I think, is the kind of RAM. Is only going to have about 12 gigabytes of RAM instead of 16 gigabytes, but the games can be optimized to utilize that RAM, and it's still a substantial amount of RAM compared to, let's say, 8 gigabytes or even 4 gigabytes, which is what the original Nintendo Switch was using. So, the Nintendo Switch 2, because of that DLSS upscaling technology, I truly believe that the next wave of games are going to be games that allow you to change the visual style of your games using artificial intelligence. So you can go for a more hyper-realistic look, you can go for a more anime-based look, but it's going to be substantial. And as a result of that, and you can even change the character models. So that's going to be massive, and I think that we're all not really thinking about are considering just how much, the Nintendo Switch using DLSS, having a better compute system. Compute units are the cores within the CPU itself, but I think that this thing is going to compete much better with the PlayStation 5 than people think. It's going to be, in some ways, it is going to surpass the PlayStation 5 because of DLSS. I know people are like, are you insane? No. Because of DLSS, because of the architecture, the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be more in line with the PlayStation 5 Pro than it is with the PlayStation 5. Does that mean that visually the games are going to look substantially better than the PlayStation 5 base model? Not necessarily, but it's going to allow it to do things that the PlayStation 5 simply cannot do, even the PlayStation 5 Pro. The big changes, the big advancements that will come with the PlayStation 5, with the PlayStation series, will come with the PlayStation 6 after the technology has been sorted out and it's been refined more, and it's more in line with DLSS. The PSSR is a new chip that Sony is including in the PlayStation 5 Pro that allows for everything from upscaling to generating new frames and all of these other things. It's more in line with, it's basically a deep learning chip that allows them to generate entirely new frames by studying the computations, by studying the structure of other games and gathering all of this information. It can then use that information to generate new frames, better frames, and eventually my belief is games that look entirely different, where, for example, me and you could be playing the exact same game. We could both be playing Silent Hill, and we can change the look of Rose right here, and it would basically be not just the look of her character model, but also in terms of the texture of her face, if she's, if she looks more masculine or feminine, but more so, we could have a hyper-realistic look. We can have a look where it looks more like Legend, like The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, where it has kind of that cartoon anime style cell shaded look. There's so many different areas and angles that we can go in that it's absolutely massive. And I think that we're going to see things like that happen in the next generation when it comes to Nintendo. Nintendo's hardware is basically built for that. They can do these things, while Sony's hardware, it's good. They're basically going to be playing catch up. And I think that's so significant because again, developers are going to have to also learn how to use PSSR when DLSS is already there. This technology is already there. It's been there for a couple of years. DLSS is basically, it's just a form of deep learning, okay? It's deep learning, and then it can do upscaling, but then it can also do other stuff. And DLSSR. And it's going to be really massive. So we do have some choices in the matter, but as a result of that, I think that because Nintendo, despite the fact that they're like the Yakuza of the video game industry right now, where don't even basically they try to control anything you say about their games. If you even use their gameplay footage and they don't like you, they'll come after you. They don't like emulation, but at the same time, they are less likely to police the kinds of games that can be on the Nintendo Switch. They very much graduated into a new mindset. They used to be a company where they didn't want games that did not go against that went against the whole family focus, family friendly nature of Nintendo to basically not go anywhere near their platforms. With Nintendo Switch, you have like basically hentai games on there. I don't know if they actually show any outright NUDITY. However, they are basically pushing the trend. So it's kind of like any almost anything goes on there. It's not as serious as Steam, where on Steam you actually do have adult games where it's just literally adult games. Like almost anything goes on Steam. So it's not that far with the Switch, but compared to PlayStation, Xbox, they are 100% the most lenient when it comes to the kinds of titles that go onto their consoles, and they're really not trying to push any narratives right now. Even if they want to attract more women to their gaming audience, the visual representations are still characters that are fit, feminine, and friendly. So it's still a better experience, and I think that that's a massive that says a lot about where things are going to be going forward.
Right? The only people that look the same are the people you intentionally had, every possible way that you were going to make this character ugly, right? Because it's a straight white male. So you're going to make this character ugly. Eddie's fucking ugly as shit as expected. And again, even Eddie went from a little bit skinnier drawn Eddie to fucking what the fuck? How did you get from this to that, bro? That's crazy. They were like, "Yup, he's a straight white male. We're gonna fuck him up." Absolutely, bro. Look at these again, just to give you some character designs. It is wild to me just to see the absolute difference between all the characters and what we eventually got in the game. I don't understand how we got here or why they decided to do this, other than for modern audience reasons, right? And I feel like Angela is by far the most insulting one. I mean, again, look at this. This tells me everything, man. She is traumatized. She's been through some shit. She hasn't been sleeping, struggling. This sells it to me, and it's just in her face, her dead face, not smiling, clearly been through some stuff. This sells it for me. Why did you give me the modern audience, Angela? Why? What is the reason for doing that? Even in the way that she looks. And again, she's not like super curvy. I don't care about that. She's not big boobs, no butt. I don't care. She don't have to have that. It's not what it's about. But she looks traumatized. Give that to me. Give that Angela to me. Can we get a DLC for this one? Can you add her into the game somehow, some way? Like, can we make that happen? Like, seriously, we need this Angela in the game, because the Angela that we got in the game does a terrible job of selling the story to us. And not only that, the voice actress is really bad. I don't know who voiced, modern Angela, but it's really bad. Even this Angela doesn't look terrible, right? Feminine for the most part, but been through some shit. I just wish they would add a little bit more dark undertones under the eyes to really showcase that she hasn't been sleeping very well. But overall, this right here, the dead eyes, the dead face, no smile, this is it. This is it. But this is not what we got. We didn't get this. Same thing with Maria, right? Like, looking at Maria, we went from this to somehow this. This is very jarring. I don't know how we got here. I feel like this portrait doesn't really do Maria justice, but if you look at here, this looks a lot more like a sexualized Maria, which for her character, she's supposed to be, right? She's supposed to be sexualized. It's supposed to represent a part of James, right? Without spoiling the story, it's supposed to represent a part of James. Maria represents that misogynist part of James, right? That sexualization of women. That is the entire reason for her existence and the way that she looks, the way that she does. She's supposed to be a sexualized version of James' wife. So why did you tone that down? Why did you tone down the sexuality of her? The one character that you're supposed to do it with, you didn't do it with, right? So again, guys, shout out to Banderhub. These pictures are amazing. Go check out his Twitter profile. He's posting all of this on his page, and it's really, even James, bro. James looks totally different from the James we got in the game. He's got a more angular jaw here in this, and in the game, he's just like kind of soy boy chin. I don't really know how to explain it. Just very soft, kind of long drag chin. It's so weird what they did with the 3D models.
The models that they're now forcing into games are increasingly just gross to look at. These are not attractive characters. There's always something off about them. They are choosing to deliberately make them ugly because they do not like gamers. They don't want us to enjoy the game. They want it to feel repulsed. They want us to feel repulsed when we play the game. But I've already said, guys, that they're hitting a snag because there are games coming out right now that from China, from the East, from Korea, and the models in these games are beautiful. I showed you this in one of my other videos, and we're gonna look at the video again because there's another game in the Wu series coming from China, and the character model is absolutely beautiful. And this is a reflection of, if they don't like money, guess what? These companies from overseas, from China, from South Korea, and even some indie companies in Japan and the United States will pick up the mantle, and they will develop these games that people actually want to play. And you can put out games now that are on the level of AAA games in, very a lot easier. Like Pal World was a game that is essentially a AAA game that was built on a shoestring budget, like for like $47,000, and built by people who didn't know how to program, didn't know, like, a girl who, like the lead visual designer is like some girl that would be at a, like, you would meet at a anime convention trying to sell you her sketches. I'm so serious. It was a ragtag team of people. The founder of the company did not know how to write a line of code, and this is what they achieved. So we're absolutely looking at a major gaming crash, and it's because of companies now that are going to be stepping up and filling in as more consumers walk away from the political correctness in these games, the disgusting and ugly models that are in these character models that are in these games, and the sickening microtransactions and live service games that they're pumping out right now, all out of greed. This game is actually called Wu Chang, and it looks like something out of Onimusha and very similar to Black Myth Wukong. The star of this game is actually a female, and what's interesting is that this game comes from a company called 505 Studios. They're the ones developing the game. It's a Chinese company, just like the developers of Black Myth Wukong, who deliberately said, hey, we're not going to have this, political correctness in games. And if you look at the character model on the screen, the character is an absolutely beautiful character. IGN would be pissed off. They may not even want to review the game, or they'll give it a 6 or a 7. They'll say that the character model doesn't look like a real person. It looks like a doll. It's like basically everyone is supposed to be ugly. You cannot be attractive. You cannot have nice facial features anymore. It's all supposed to be like cleft jaws on ladies, and men are supposed to all look like soy boys. But here you have an amazing looking game, great visuals. The gameplay looks insane. And again, the character model, she looks incredible. I would love to play this game. It's like, she's fighting baddies, she's fighting bad guys, she's fighting men. And it looks, guys, this is the kind of game that we want to purchase. You have this Yotai game coming out, and there's no femininity. There's everything stripped away. No feminine characters. The main character, she does not even look like a chick. She looks as unattractive as you can possibly get. And it's like, who the heck wants to play that? Now here you have this game where it's insane visuals, great, obviously the team who made this game knows what they are doing, and the character in the game is an absolute baddie. Not only is the protagonist is an absolute baddie, and is not only is the protagonist an absolute baddie, but look at the characters that she's fighting. Look at the villains. Like, this villain is absolutely gorgeous. Long legs, slender design, wings. Look at that face. This unbelievable, extremely feminine features. Okay? This is what gamers want. It has a look very similar to Black Myth Wukong. This game is called Wu Chang, and it's only going to continue to pick up the mantle. Like this, look at this. Like, it's very similar to Stellar Blade. Total baddie character. All right. There's no reason why your character cannot be a baddie and also be fun and also be powerful. I mean, if you're going to be playing a game for many hours, the character damn well needs to be attractive, don't they? They absolutely do.
I'm going to criticize your product if it's bad, and I'm going to criticize your really shitty attitude. And that's exactly what other gamers did too. People saw that you were acting like an ass, and people didn't buy your game. Maybe you shouldn't have said that we were arguing in bad faith to provide proof for a harassment campaign. There's no harassment campaign. The only thing that was going on were people standing up for themselves. So you're saying it's okay for you to stand up for yourself, but you're also saying it's not okay for gamers to stand up for themselves? Absolute clown world mentality. And as for his comments on Reddit, he stated, "It was a busy time. We did good though. It helps being on multiple platforms. It's all about longevity and continuing forward. The more people share and talk about the game, the more it snowballs. So yeah, we hope to continue building." And obviously the game sales were not fine for the company, as if they were better, they wouldn't have had to go through all of these layoffs. And as you can see, the game's peak concurrent players are not looking good, and the game's peak concurrent players actually peaked in April when the game was released with just 287 people. So we're talking about a lot of sweet baby fails upon sweet baby fails. We of course have this game that is officially dying this weekend when Unknown 9 Awakening, Sweet Baby's latest game, is releasing. So it's not a great time for Sweet Baby. It's not a great time for all of the developers that are working for them.
And I've been ranting and raving about Unknown 9. You know, Unknown 9 is the latest game from Sweet Baby Inc. Basically, they're now writing the actual scripts for AAA games. They are writing the scripts, guys, for these games. Writing the scripts, which is insane. So the script for this game, I think, was actually written by the CEO of Sweet Baby Inc. And the game is absolutely flopping right now. You have the star of the game is Yennefer. So basically the actress who played Yennefer in The Witcher. She's a really beautiful woman. She is an English actress, and she is half Indian, half white. Her mother was white. Her father was Indian, but she has white skin. She looks like an exotic white woman. And what did they do? They basically paint her brown in the game. They make her face larger, and they basically uglify her. So they make her look ugly. And it's now all about diversity. She doesn't really understand the game very much, but she's going around to interviews talking about diversity now. So I don't really know if it seems like that's how a lot of these people are in Hollywood, and I don't want to be unfair to her, but her character model looks so gross. And it's like, bro, like, do you have no self-respect for yourself that you would allow yourself to be portrayed this way in the name of diversity, equity, and inclusion? Like, I would never want to be placed in a game or any visual representation made of me that would make me look as unattractive as possible. Like, that's a load of absolute stupidity. Who would want that? Only people at Sweet Baby Inc. are going for this. And notice they scrubbed their entire website clean to basically remove mention of like most of the game companies that they are working with, because they're absolutely killing off these games. I've been looking at Final Fantasy Remake and waiting for them to announce it for PC. I still haven't played through Final Fantasy Rebirth. And the thing is, like, they're censoring these games now, and they're adding, inclusivity in these games. So, like, there's, like, scenes where you have couples of the same, GENDER that are in relationships, and it's like, what? And they have an entire group at Square Enix right now that, and that focuses on diversity, equity, and inclusion. The new Dragon Quest games, the creator of the series, basically said that wokeism in the Western society is like an evil god, and it's destroying the games. And what did Square Enix do? They claimed that the interview was incorrect, and it did not reflect the actual views of the creator of Dragon Quest and the artist of Dragon Quest, and saying that Akira Toriyama, the creator, the person responsible for this game, would not have the visuals in this game, and designing the character models, would not have wanted this. Who's also the creator of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball Super and Dragon Ball Dai. And it's crazy because they had the interview taken down, and they're actively scrubbing it from the internet because they did not want people seeing that the creator of Dragon Quest is speaking out on this. Even one of the former president or former top executives, leaders at Sony, is also calling out the gaming industry, diversity, equity, inclusion in the industry. He was working at Sony back in the 1980s. That's before PlayStation ever arrived. He was a PlayStation executive. He is very much responsible for the PlayStation launching in North America and being a success. And he's also calling out the garbage that's happening in the gaming industry right now, the greed that's happening in there, the political correctness and censorship that's happening there. So there are people who are calling it out. And for anyone that does not believe it, we are 100% in a video game crash. These studios are shutting down right now. Studio after studio is shutting down, announcing that all the employees either quit or they're all being fired. And, even IGN, you cannot spell ignorant without IGN, is complaining that, their friends are, getting pink slips and have to stand on the unemployment line, and soon they'll be standing on the bread line. I care about the employees, but at the same time, you have to remember, how are you going to cry about your friends losing their jobs in the gaming industry when you're the ones that are pushing these narratives that we need more diversity, equity, and inclusion, and consumers don't want to buy this garbage? And here's the thing. There are millions and millions, tens of millions of soy boys, tens of millions of women who are liberated and empowered and say that this is the kind of thing that they want. So why is it that they didn't go out and pick up Concord, which is one of the most woke games ever made? Because they would not spend their money on that garbage. They would not spend a dime of their money on that load of crap. Only 25,000 people picked up Concord. Only 25,000 picked up that pile of horse manure. So all of these people that are like, oh, we want diversity, equity, and inclusion in games, they won't even go out and buy these games. They won't even spend their money on it. The soy boys that are saying that they want more games like this with inclusivity, they won't buy the games. They won't buy the games. They won't go and see these movies. Look at Joker. There were all of these people that were like, oh, we hate Joker and we hate the community. So why didn't you go and watch Joker 2? It's a movie that completely, attacks the audience that loved the first one, shames them, tries to humiliate them, so why didn't all of these people go out and watch it? Because they only want to complain, but they don't actually want these products. They don't want games that have actual ugly characters and all of this representation. They don't want these games that were developed by people who do not know how to code. If you look at the latest Halo games, they're absolute trash. And a lot of it is because they started focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion. They started, they destroyed Cortana. She was one of the greatest parts of Halo, and her heart. They turned her into an absolute villain and a lunatic. And they destroyed her, and they took away a baddie, and then give us this other version of Cortana, or are similar to Cortana, that now is wearing a space uniform and is kind of boring. There's inclusion for you. They destroy everything that we love and replace it with everything that we would absolutely hate. If we jump back and look a little further at Unknown 9, the new game that's a AAA game that was essentially written by the CEO of Sweet Baby Inc., you can see, guys, it looks absolutely horrible. So let's go ahead and jump into this, because I want you guys to just look at this very carefully. And again, it's Vara explaining everything.
Unknown 9 Awakening is the latest Sweet Baby Inc. bomb, and it's really no shocker after you've watched the horrendous looking gameplay, character models, and once you get a taste of the story, where just a few minutes into the game, she's talking about how she's an empowered woman, and of course it's launch weekend, so you would think that the numbers would be booming, lots of people would be playing it, but that certainly isn't happening. Now, I have already started my live streamed playthrough of this game. The first part will be in the description, and when I'm uploading this tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern, I will be continuing because, yes, I seemingly hate myself by playing all of these games, but on release day, we could see that the numbers were not off to a strong start. It was sitting at 114 when I took the screenshot, and then 169 5 hours before, which of course was at release. And of course, these are just abysmal numbers in totality, but we were thinking maybe it's a Thursday, it's affecting the numbers. There's lots of people who aren't going to play until the weekend. But now we're talking about Saturday afternoon, and the all-time peak so far has not even been today. It was yesterday on Friday with a measly 285 people in game. And keep in mind, Bandai Namco bought Reflector Studios specifically for this game, just like Sony bought Firewalk Studios specifically for Concord. And of course, it's no shocker to see DEI-driven games fail. We've seen a slew of them fail over the years, and it doesn't look like that is going to change anytime soon. But what's hilarious to me is that we are at the peak of the culture war so far, and it's only getting worse for these companies, and gamers are only seeing more and more wins. But we are talking about the mainstream gaming media constantly defending these games, writing articles talking about how passionate the teams behind them are. They typically give these games good scores. IGN only gave this a 5, and it's still too generous, but usually they give these games good scores. They give them a lot of press. So the modern audience that these companies want to market these titles to have an abundance of ways of finding these games. This is supposed to be a AAA game. This is not an independently made title. It's a AAA, and you would think that it would muster better numbers than 285. And again, that was on a Friday. Never mind on the Saturday of release, and it can't even top 200 people in game, which is simply abysmal. And if you go ahead and you look at some of the Twitch stats, not that these are, particularly important, but it says it's got 2,632 viewers right now, and the owner estimations are still not good. It's estimated to have 1.2K to 1.5K copies sold, which is still simply god-awful for them, right? They expected this to do a heck of a lot better, and what's even more hilarious about this is the fact that if you head on over to the Steam page and you start looking at the reviews, first of all, it's sitting at mostly negative with 32 reviews, so not even that many, but when you start really paying attention to the detail, a majority of them actually received the product for free. Apparently, this is being bundled with GPUs, and you are able to reclaim a copy of this for free. And that just means that for these player numbers, like the, as it says right now, 191, a certain percentage of those are not even people who paid to play this game, which is, in my opinion, the way that should be, given this title should have never released and they should have never scammed people out of $50 freaking dollars. But even the people who got it for free, who you'd think would be a little bit more generous in their score, saying, it's not the best game, but at the same time, it was for free, free is good. No. They're still getting raked across the coals, saying things like, wow, just wow, I got this game for free with an AMD GPU purchase, and even then I feel like I want a game refund. The combat feels like it's from 2005, as well as the lack of facial expressions. The eyes just stare straight ahead, and it is quite disturbing. The combat is woeful, just dodge and hit. Stealth worked the best, but it rarely stays that way. I personally have put 4 hours into the game so far, and yeah, it was quite the clusterfuck. I mean, it genuinely did not feel like a brand new game released in 2024. It feels so outdated, it's buggy, it's broken, visually, it looks terrible. I mean, it is such a disappointing experience, and a lot of people last year thought that Forspoken was a terrible game. This is Forspoken times 50. It is significantly worse than even that. At least Forspoken, while yes, it had terrible dialogue and writing, visually looked pretty good and ran relatively well. This game is just a disaster in every way, shape, or form. Then, of course, you get into the fact that a lot of the abilities are really mediocre and you don't have a jump, which is crazy in 2024. But you also have a lot of the enemies looking exactly the same, having the same abilities and weapons. It's just terrible. And I can't say I'm particularly shocked when you find out not only did Sweet Baby Inc. work on this game, but Kim Belair is one of the co-writers of this game as far as we are aware. And David Bedard, the other SBI co-founder, heavily influenced this game and the content within it. Like, this is what happens when narrative consultants feel that they deserve a chance to write a game in totality, that they are better than even the people they're hired to typically micromanage. And they came out with the worst piece of content of the year, maybe. I mean, it's definitely in the top 3. That is for certain. Maybe even the worst of the year. And I think for a lot of people, they're not even giving this a try because, first of all, a lot of gamers are boycotting Sweet Baby Inc. titles right now. But secondly, this just doesn't look like a good game, and nobody is saying that it is. The modern audience had a chance to show up and monetarily support this game. They could have proven the chuds wrong, but yet again, they didn't, because the modern audience doesn't really exist. And there are millions of gamers right now who are boycotting Sweet Baby Inc. titles. Now, I don't think that this would have been super popular even if Sweet Baby was not affiliated with it. But on the flip side, Sweet Baby is. And that means that there are going to be tons of people who might have at least given it a shot who refused to touch it with a 10-foot pole, because there is such a massive boycott going on surrounding narrative consultation companies. And, well, one of these days, these companies are going to have to realize, the Bandai Namco's out there, the Sony's out there, are going to have to realize that this is not a winning strategy, that making modern day activism slop is not going to make you money. It is not going to sell copies of a game, and they either are going to have to start listening to gamers again and creating really high quality experiences, or they're going to have to get comfortable with the fact that they are not going to exist in just a few years. Like, do we really think Reflector Entertainment is going to make another game after this? Absolutely not.
And one of the things I keep on pointing out is that these companies may not exist going forward into the future, because there is a huge threat for them right now, which is the PC space, because of things like the Steam Deck and other things like the ROG Ally. Right now, these are handhelds. But trust me when I say that it's only a matter of time before Steam drops their own Steam console, and other companies follow suit and begin dropping their own consoles as well. And not all of them will necessarily have to use Windows. As a result of this, it could potentially create a lot, and when I say a lot, I mean a lot more competition in the market. Sony's PlayStation has no games. It does not take much for a company like Samsung to come along and put together like 5 or 6 decent games and release them over the course of a couple of years, the way Nintendo does. And now they have bangers on their hands, and they have captured a large portion of the gaming market, because the PlayStation has no games. The PlayStation 5 has no games. They call it basically the PlayStation 4 Pro, because it's just a pro version of the PlayStation 4 Pro, and the games are just, most of the games, almost like 99% of the games, roughly, that you can play on the PlayStation 5 can also be played on the PlayStation 4, and they're still coming out for the PlayStation 4. Even games that came out first on the PS5, go a year later, a few months later, are now getting PlayStation 4 ports as well. What does that mean? And of course, a quick shout out to the 1 Hour Gang, 1 Hour Gang, 1 Hour Gang, 1 Hour Gang. When I started working on this video, I was originally planning to make it a 30-something minute video, and then I was like, you know what, there's so much that I need to say and put in here, I'm just going to make it a 1 hour video. What was happening were there were so many people that were furious that the videos had become longer, that I had started to pull back, and I was not making the 1 hour videos anymore. And I was like, okay, well, I could do them every so often. And I think that's really what I'm going to do. But shout out to the 1 hour gang. If you've been watching the video for this long, you've made it all the way through, and you want more of these 1 hour videos, let me know, and I'll try to do that. I'll try to, because it'll be a mixture. So we'll keep the videos at typically around 30 to 40 minutes long, but we'll also work at the 1 hour videos. If there's more that I have to say, more than just pushing it out to 1 hour, but just more that I have to say and I want to get off my chest, then we'll go down that path, because this video I feel like that we're making right now is a bit of a masterpiece. I shouldn't say masterpiece, but it's a very good video. I can already feel it's a good video. I hope a lot of people end up watching it, but I really like the work that I've done on this video, and I really was able to put a lot of the things in here that I wanted to, and say a lot of the things that I want to say, and I think that's very, very important. And guys, if you're enjoying the content, you know who you are. You know who you are. Check out the Angry Guy Clubhouse. Get top expat and passport bro travel tips, digital nomad guides, passive income strategies, and hard-hitting manosphere content. Free subscribers get access to videos, podcasts, articles, and community chat. Plus, receive the passive income blueprint and digital nomad blueprint just for subscribing. Paid subscribers unlock exclusive guides like the How to Build an Online Business in 24 Hours ebook, wealth building blueprints, and crypto updates. Join us now. Click the link in the description.
Do we think that Firewalk Studios is going to make another game after Concord? Absolutely not. There's no way that those teams are going to stay together, that these companies are just going to hand them big budgets again and say, go for it, create something good. That's just not going to happen. So, of course, Unknown 9 Awakenings release weekend is here, and it's going terribly for Reflector and Bandai. It peaked all-time 285 on Friday. As of right now, Saturday afternoon, it's sitting at 191, so it's going terribly for them, and I'll be keeping my eye on this over the next few days.
She'll be keeping her eye on it and probably celebrating its eventual demise if they pull the game entirely. It's so funny because you can see Concord is an absolute pile of crap. No one wants to play that horse crap. The character models in the game look absolutely awful. We actually have some footage of Concord, and you can basically just see what the game looks like. Like, these are the character models of the game, and they look absolutely awful. They're not attractive. That's actually a guy. It's an overweight individual. As you can see, guys, these are not characters you wanted to play as, and Sony thought this was the future of gaming, designed for a modern audience right now, extremely woke, and to be very, very clear, no white people. To be very clear, they thought that they were going to be able to sell this game to basically as whomever they wanted to, and if you did not like it, too bad, because you had no choice whatsoever in the game. There's all this representation, of course, and it's a joke. No one wants to pick up this game. No one wants to play this game. This game is absolutely ugly, and it's the same people who are the foundation of cancel culture are now crying because this game is being 100% canceled right now. Gamers are like, we don't want this pile of steaming garbage. We don't want your trash, so we're not going to buy your trash. And they're basically crying their eyes out left and right. This footage actually comes from the United G channel for Concord, so you can check them out. Their channel will be linked in the description. You can go check them out and support them. And I mean, overall, the game design is not necessarily that the game design is bad. It's just that the game characters, the models, the narrative, it's all garbage. It's all woke. And that's what you're seeing. These companies that went woke, now they're going broke. And, look at Ubisoft. Ubisoft was once worth like $13 billion a few years ago. Now they're worth less than $2 billion continuously. And there are rumors that Tenet, basically, a Chinese company that owns a portion of them already, are looking to take the company private, because it's a publicly traded company. People have lost billions of dollars at Ubisoft. People who invested in Ubisoft, they've lost all of their money. And Ubisoft they're heading in the direction right now where they can end up being delisted from the stock market. And they did all of this in the name of being woke in the name of modern audiences, and they were told not to do this, and this is what they did. They ran the company completely into the ground, and these people need to be in prison. They took your money. They took all of this money from people who invested in Ubisoft, and they put out games no one wanted to play that had that were based around political activism and inclusion and BLM narratives, approved narratives, and they're going to sit there and say that it's about kindness and cry their eyes out. Like, these are evil people. Evil people. Like, guys, Sony, I hope Sony shuts down. I hope Sony does not survive. I hope Square Enix does not survive. I supported these companies for a long time. I want their companies to go bottom up. I don't want them to exist anymore. And their IPs can be sold off and something else can come along and replace them. Like, this world is so horrible. Like, that's what's inside of me. They've destroyed many of the things that I loved and enjoyed. We are not friends. You're an evil organization. We need justice for people like Vic Mignogna. For example, another thing, guys, like, there's a lot of things happening. Elon Musk is like supporting lawsuits right now that are helping people to go against companies like Sony for wrongful termination because they did not support woke narratives. And it's really serious right now what's going on. Really, really serious. Again, guys, they did this to themselves, and they're going to have to deal with the consequences of the choices that they've made.
And of course, the poor performance was not unsurprising given Surgent Studios hired Sweet Baby to work on the game, and it was subsequently added to the SBI detected Steam curator list. And I say this all the freaking time. While there are millions of gamers who are boycotting Sweet Baby Inc. titles and who will ultimately not support games on the SBI detected / DEI detected list, the modern audience could prove all of us wrong and show that they exist. You, if you wanted, could go down the DEI detected list and buy every single game on the list. You could monetarily support all of these developers, but these fictitious individuals, the modern audience, doesn't time and time again because they don't actually exist. And the few people that could be classified as the modern audience, aka sensitive snowflakes on social media, don't actually play video games. So this is why developers should actually try to make games for gamers.
So there are millions of people who would fall into this modern audience narrative, the strong, liberated women, the soy boys in society. These are people that are helping to push this. Hollywood in and of itself and all the people that are associated in Hollywood. Most of these people, they are woke. Hollywood is a joke. It's a cesspool. It needs to, DIE and go away. But the simple truth is a lot of these woke audiences, the modern audience people, they don't have that kind of money. One, they may hate these, they may like to rage on these things, but they don't actually want to play these ugly, disgusting games that they say that they love. They don't actually want to watch these movies. For example, there was a movie like about bros, and it was a movie that was about, focused on the community. No one went and watched it. All of these movies that are centered on the community, on these political groups and narratives, these people are not going out and watching it. Movies that are centered around people who are, QUER, I think that's how you spell it, or people who are GAY, or people who are LESBIAN. People who fall into these communities, they're not going out and watching these movies. There are millions of these people. There are millions of these people, and they're not watching these movies. They're not buying them on DVD. Why are they not supporting these films? Because they don't like them. They want to watch movies. They want to watch stuff that's centered around heterosexual people and normal narratives, but they like to be included and inserted into these things just because, which is just insane. But that's just how it is right now. And of course, a lot of this stuff is being being done to create division, to create demoralization. This is what happens when a country is heading towards a massive decline and a collapse. And I've said this before, that it won't be society that collapses, it will be groups of people in society that collapse. But they did it to themselves. They 100% did it to themselves.
Yet again, instead of push their activism in our faces and tell us to not buy their titles. Maybe if you made a half decent product, you'd be making sales and you'd be able to continue your quote passion, even though I think that these people really don't care about the games industry. They simply care about making money. And well, unfortunately for the Tales of Kanzara Zhao team, the developer has now had to lay off their entire team and put the entire games division on hiatus after previously claiming the game's sales were fine, when the lie detector has determined that that most certainly is not the case.
It's so interesting because they created a game that they said would represent black people and African culture, and no one wants it. No one is buying it. Everyone absolutely despises it. And they're like, oh, well, if you're white and you don't like this, then that makes you a bad person. And, you're a part of the right wing. So we don't want you to buy your games. So don't buy them. Guys, look at what happened at G4 TV. Okay, you had this woman named Frosk, and she basically went on a rant and a rampage about, sexism in gaming and gaming media. And she was like, you're getting this for free, and if you don't like it, don't watch it. And that's exactly what ended up happening. She basically killed off G4. G4 ended up dying a second passing, and it all happened as a result of, they tried to be political, they tried to get involved in this stuff, and one woman is responsible for the major downfall of this all over again. We wanted G4 to come back, we wanted it to be successful, we wanted something that would challenge IGN, because IGN, they basically picked up the mantle from GameSpot after GameSpot went crazy woke, and we began watching IGN, and IGN began putting out great content, and then they also are super woke. I mean, they've hired a lot of they've evidently hired some, if not a lot, of BuzzFeed people, and now they've made it very clear just what they think. Games like Black Myth Wukong that do not center on anything related to race or gender or anything. It's just about a monkey man fighting enemies. There's nothing disrespectful talking about women or anything, because it's not a game centered on its inclusivity. It was disrespected by IGN. They claimed that the studio who developed the game was biased and a variety of things when they were complete and utter lies. And I think they even had to issue an apology, just like they had to issue an apology over criticizing the developer of Stellar Blade and comparing him to basically an INCEL, and saying that the character model basically looked like a doll and did not reflect what a real woman looked like. And then they basically showed a picture of his wife, who's also a developer. She's also a graphics designer and works in that field, and she looks very much like the character who's in the game, who is in Stellar Blade. They issued an apology and then tried to say that this statement was made by IGN France, and they're an independent office, so they technically should not be blamed for what IGN France said. These are evil, vindictive people, and hopefully, as more YouTube channels grow, as more because we have things like Game Explain and so forth, more companies will come together. Unfortunately, Digital Foundry was purchased by the same company that owns IGN, so we're beginning to see a consolidation now. I'm afraid it's very, very scary, because these companies have lots of money, so it's not hard to walk up to a company like Digital Foundry and say, hey, we'll give you $1 million for your YouTube channel, and now you basically become employees for us. And I think that's exactly what ended up happening. That's how the left operates. They basically buy up media platforms. They basically monopolize media. They monopolize everything from news coverage and people who tell us the news, to people who develop video games, to people who make movies and television shows. They take control of these industries, and then they begin using them to push their political agendas. But it's beginning to have a very negative impact on a lot of these industries. You can see what happened with Joker 2, where it's a massive flop. It's going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars. Studio's going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars. They're now trying to get the movie over to, it just came out in October. At the beginning of October, the movie has flopped so hard that they're saying that it'll be available on home video, for on-demand video, places like Amazon, I guess, to purchase the video and or rent the video on like October 30th, right around there. So before November even comes, before November even starts. So within less than a month of it being out in the theaters, they're trying to now get the movie into they're trying to get the movie onto on-demand services so they can recoup some of their losses, because they're hoping that people are going to be dumb enough to go and purchase it on Amazon and other on-demand services, even when they refuse to watch it in theaters. Yeah. I mean, some people have said that Lady Gaga should never have been allowed to portray Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn is an extreme, bombshell. She's absolutely gorgeous. I think they should have just gotten in a world that made sense. They should have gotten Margaret Robbie to go and portray that character. I think that would have actually been a much better reality. But it was always designed to be a piece of crap. It was always designed to be terrible. And you have Warner Brothers and DC that are trying to separate themselves from the film and say that they're not responsible. They're trying to put all of the blame on Todd Phillips for the film. He's the person who created the original Joker movie, and then he decided to go woke with this one. And he's like, now he's done with DC, but they're more like they're done with him. They're trying to say that, he's the responsible. He's the one he's the one who made the movie, and he was allowed to do whatever he wanted. He didn't take any notes from James Gunn. That's a total BS. Total BS. DC knew exactly what he was cooking. There's no way you would hand someone like $200 million or $400 million, because you have to factor in the marketing budget and say, okay, go wild with this. No way in heck. Okay, they knew exactly what he was doing. These companies have all gone woke, and they were hoping that this was going to somehow appeal to that modern audience that doesn't exist. And what ends up happening, guys, is it just makes everything more expensive. Like, I had no idea how expensive Blu-rays were now. Like, Blu-rays are now going for like $34 if you want to buy like the Blu-ray for a lot of movies. $34 for the Blu-ray? Like, don't be shocked when it starts costing like $34, or not 34, $50 for DVDs and Blu-rays. Cuz that's where it's going. Where it's going to end up costing like $50 or $60 for the Blu-ray. And this notion that you will own nothing, like a lot of people are like this. Like, for example, I purchased a ton of games on GOG recently, good old games, and now that's where I'm looking to purchase most of my games, because you get the installers on GOG, and you can actually you can save them to your Google Drive, so you can save them to your drive on Google. You can back them up. You can put them on Dropbox, wherever, and you can redistribute them if you want to. You're not supposed to legally, but you can. And so you can even share them with your friends. So you actually own your games this way. And when I say own your games, I mean own your digital games. You cannot resell or redistribute your digital game, but they cannot be taken away from you. And that's why I like GOG, because right now Steam even says it on on their purchase page. You don't own anything. Like, you're not purchasing the actual game. You are purchasing a license for the game that can be taken away at any time. Modern games, digital games that you purchase digitally from Sony, from Microsoft, all of these are games that are basically just long-term rentals. You're not purchasing the game, you're leasing the game for the full price of purchasing a physical copy. And there's a lot of suggestions right now that Nintendo, with the Nintendo Switch 2, is going to change things, so you will no longer be able to even own your physical games. It's basically a license on a disc that you'll have to activate when you connect it to your account, your Nintendo Online account, and then from there, you won't be able to ever resell the game, because if you want to, you play the game, it's forever tied to your Nintendo Online account, so you can play it on other systems that you may purchase in the future, but you'll have to activate it with your account. So as a result, these games will lose all of their resale values. Someone said something very interesting. I like the quote. They actually said, and I love this, they said, if buying is not owning, then pirating is not stealing. And I think that's a very interesting way of looking at it. Because if they say you will own nothing and be happy, well, then if our money isn't worth anything, then, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, those are the generations of thieves and squatters. I've already said that Gen Alpha will be a large prison population. So they're just laying the groundwork for everyone in Western society to turn against these large corporations, and just take, like, hey, if you're gonna take everything that we have and leave us with nothing, then we're just not going to respect you anymore. People will just start pirating your content. People will just basically say screw it. That's the honest to goodness truth. Because if we can no longer own the things that we buy, then if buying is not owning, then pirating is not stealing.
Even this Angela doesn't look terrible, right? Feminine for the most part, but been through some shit. I just wish they would add a little bit more dark undertones under the eyes to really showcase that she hasn't been sleeping very well. But overall, this right here, the dead eyes, the dead face, no smile, this is it. This is it. But this is not what we got. We didn't get this. Same thing with Maria, right? Like, looking at Maria, we went from this to somehow this. This is very jarring. I don't know how we got here. I feel like this portrait doesn't really do Maria justice, but if you look at here, this looks a lot more like a sexualized Maria, which for her character, she's supposed to be, right? She's supposed to be sexualized. It's supposed to represent a part of James, right? Without spoiling the story, it's supposed to represent a part of James. Maria represents that misogynist part of James, right? That sexualization of women. That is the entire reason for her existence and the way that she looks, the way that she does. She's supposed to be a sexualized version of James' wife. So why did you tone that down? Why did you tone down the sexuality of her? The one character that you're supposed to do it with, you didn't do it with, right? So again, guys, shout out to Banderhub. These pictures are amazing. Go check out his Twitter profile. He's posting all of this on his page, and it's really, even James, bro. James looks totally different from the James we got in the game. He's got a more angular jaw here in this, and in the game, he's just like kind of soy boy chin. I don't really know how to explain it. Just very soft, kind of long drag chin. It's so weird what they did with 3D models.
This is the reason why people no longer want to play these games. These games are ugly. The characters are ugly. The soy boy chin. Who wants to play a game with these with these soy boys? And now they get to be the star of the show, right? Like, hey, I'm a soy boy. I'm going to be the star now. Oh my gosh, I tell you guys, 2024 is such an intriguing year, but it's also the year where you're seeing people stand up and say no more. Look at things like soft guy era, where men are like, they're standing up to women in society and saying that we're going to prioritize ourselves. This is not a midlife crisis. This is men basically saying that we're not going to allow you to continue invading our spaces. We're not going to be taken advantage of anymore by foodies, women who are just using us for a free meal. We're not going to tolerate it. We're actually going to stand up for ourselves, and we're going to prioritize our own value, our own worth. And if you want to be in a relationship with us, then you're going to have to bring something to the table. So guys, we're only going to see more companies going broke, going woke, and going broke. And it's going to take time for things to really change, in my opinion, because many of these projects have been in development for years, and they can only do so many tax write-offs. They're going to have to continue putting out these woke games and woke movies because they've been in development for years. That money was earmarked for these projects, and they could basically try to continue saying that, oh, it's not woke. Like, the president of Disney, CEO of Disney, is crying his eyes out saying that, people don't really know what the word woke means, but they don't know what woke means, and yet Disney has been scrubbing like DEI and, representation from its movies, children's movies recently, because they don't want them to flop, which just basically shows you, like, they literally sent out a memo for what if their movies saying, make it less GAY. Like, Disney actually said that. So that just shows you how much they actually care about money. They don't care about representation. They care about money. They've been trying to pander to this modern audience that does not exist. Those people don't want to buy your games. They hate gamers. They hate people who play games. They don't like us. They've wished evil things upon us. These are people who are just filled with low amounts of hate. And again, it's going to take a long time for this to change, because so many projects like this have been worked on. These companies don't have infinite amounts of money. They're going to have to keep on putting out these games, and many of them have doubled down. And when it comes to DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, it's like a parasite. Once it's invaded yourself, once it's in these companies, it's hard to ever get rid of it. I know Microsoft recently got rid of their entire DEI department, but it doesn't matter, because if you look at Halo Studios shows that even though The name is gone. The legacy still lives on. It's gone extremely woke, and they're gonna go broke. And the more they go broke, they'll just, like what a lot of companies do, like too big to fail, like Microsoft. They'll just make their products more expensive. So they'll just keep on raising the prices. They're like, oh, we lost all of this money selling a game or products that no one wanted. We'll just write it off by increasing the cost of things. So now we'll go from $69 games, $70 games to games that cost $80, and they'll say, oh well, the prices of everything are going up, so it makes sense for games to now cost $79.99, and the ponies are going to be absolutely stupid about it. Don't be shocked. Do not be shocked, guys, if GTA 6 cost $80. I fully think that there may also be different versions of the game, but don't be shocked if GTA 6 cost $80 and they're like, oh, because look at what Nintendo did with Tears of the Kingdom, where they charged $70 for that game. And don't be shocked if, like, they Sony decides that they're going to raise the prices mid console cycle. I don't even know if that we'd even call it mid console cycle, because the game is supposed to come in 2025. I don't think the game is coming until 2026. And to be very honest with you, to be very, very honest, I think that the game could also end up being delayed right out to 2027. And I will tell you the reason why I think that the game could be delayed to 2027. The Xbox Series, the next Xbox that comes after the Series S and Series X are rumored to come out in 2026. Microsoft said that the next console will represent the largest the largest leap in console visuals ever. It's likely has something to do with AI. And I've already talked about how this could work, how the look of your game could change based on the AI that's doing this, and in relation to the processor that's in there. And I really think that's really where we're going with this thing. Microsoft, hands down, has already given up on the Xbox Series S and Series X. They've given up on this generation. It makes sense. I mean, they've sold something like 25 to 30 million consoles this generation between the Series S and Series X, while Sony has already sold like 70 million. So they've already lost. They've admitted that they lost. They admitted when they were trying to purchase, Activision Blizzard. They said in court that they had already lost and they needed to purchase Activision Blizzard to even compete with Sony. But they've basically given up on this generation. And it seems very, very likely that they absolutely do want to get ahead of Sony this time around. I mean, they've told us they are working on the next Xbox. It's going to have the biggest generational leap. And that when you tell us that the next Xbox is coming, and you have, like, when you have so much news already coming about the next Xbox this early, like, you wouldn't expect to see the next Xbox until 2027. It allegedly is coming in 2026, and I do think it's going to come in 2026. They're going to try to do what they did with the Xbox 360 and get their next Xbox out before PlayStation, have it out there before PlayStation can release theirs. And the crazy thing is that, originally everyone thought that the PlayStation 6 would be coming in 2028 based on some court documents, to where Sony said that they were planning for a 2028 release of the PlayStation 6. But there's also rumors that the PlayStation 6 has been shown off already to developers. Would probably not be like, the actual game, the actual console in its design, but probably the hardware and technology that they're planning to include in there. And I think that this thing is coming in 2026 as well. Not 2026, 2027. Sony is definitely not going to want to let Microsoft get a footing on them. And even a year in advance, even 1 year in advance, is still a big head start, because the Xbox 360 came out a year before the PlayStation 3, and that gave them a massive advantage. People keep on saying that the PlayStation 3 outsold the Xbox 360. This is not entirely true. The Xbox 360 actually outsold the PlayStation 3 globally. And, the reason why they think that it has outsold the PlayStation, why the PlayStation 3 outsold the Xbox 360, is because of Japan. Xbox was not able to penetrate Japan, and that cost them like 5 million or 10 million consoles in sales. But when you take those sales out from Japan, you then realize that the Xbox 360 actually outsold the PlayStation 3 in all of the other countries. So they actually slightly outsold the PlayStation 3 in many other countries globally. Globally, outside to take Japan out, but globally, the Xbox 360 did win and it did beat out the PlayStation 3 in terms of sales. So with the PlayStation, with the Xbox 360, well, with the next Xbox, yeah, I wish, right? I love the Xbox 360 so much. With the next Xbox set to come in 2026, you can realize that Microsoft is likely going to want to really show off this device. They're gonna want the version of GTA 6 to look amazing, absolutely incredible on the next Xbox. And as a result, this is another reason why I honestly could see the next GTA simply being delayed to 2026 or even 2027, because we're going to be in 2025 in just a couple of months at the time of making this video. Think about it carefully. We're going to be in 2025, and a 1 to 2 year wait is just not a lot of time. You know, we've already waited a long time for GTA 6, and it feels like it's coming now, but there's still a lot of life left in GTA Online, and, you know, people don't even understand, like, every major GTA that has come out, ever, I think, I don't know if there's ever been one that this just didn't happen with, there have always been delays. And those delays have always been anywhere from a year to maybe even a couple of years. So there's usually like at least one delay or even 2 or 3 delays. And they're like, oh, there's not going to be any delays. I don't believe that whatsoever. I think that this game is going to have some delays, or it's going to be very half-baked. They're saying that the story in the game is going to be shorter this time around than other games in the series. And then they're going to be releasing different cities and so forth. It sounds kind of like No Man's Sky, where the game itself was not ready and they're going to be releasing a half-baked experience, and then like they'll be releasing, you know, updates to the game over time, almost like what Cyberpunk did. That's why I'm thinking like this game is probably going to end up getting delayed and shifted over to PlayStation 5, PlayStation 6, and whatever the next Xbox is called. Let's call it Xbox Next right now, because that's what we always do. We always say the next Xbox is Xbox Next. And I think that, and I also think that it's possible that Sony's, you know, the PlayStation 6 may not even come in 2027. I could be wrong. I think it could even come in 2026. It's likely to come in 2027. I don't think it's going to come in 2028. I don't think the next Xbox is coming in 2027. I think it's coming in 2026. And I think that Sony, knowing what Microsoft is doing, they may shift gear and try to get the PlayStation 6 out in 2026 as well, because they're already working on it. They're already showing it off to developers. That gives them 2 years to get the damn thing out from now, because they usually come out in the autumn, in the, you know, around Christmas time, or closer to Christmas or Halloween. So I think that's kind of what we are looking at here, guys. I really do think that's kind of what we are looking at. And I think it's going to be extremely interesting if we go down that road, what it would actually mean for Sony. But guys, you know, a lot of these companies, like I said, they're going broke, and it's going to take years before that we'll start to see a shift in the content they release, because many of these projects have been in development for years. So they're gonna and you know, it's like a parasite, it's like a disease, it's like something that once they have it, it's hard to get rid of it. You know, it's like termites, it's like you know, it's like bed bugs. Once you have DEI in your company, once you have these people there, they insert themselves into your policies. You're basically considered evil if you don't want to make games centered around diversity, equity, and inclusion. You have no heart. It's like that's the same thing that women did with men, saying that you HAT us if you don't want to support, you know, feminism, if you know what we call it, the F word. And then we could see exactly what they did with that, how evil it became, how vindictive it was, what they did with M2, so many lives of men destroyed. You know, boys are just being destroyed in the school system, in society, men and boys. You know, women are given special privileges, men are given special punishments. So, you know, it's just this direction that things have been going in. Once it's in there, it's hard to get rid of it unless there is a massive cleansing, and then you basically have to crack down on the people responsible for this stuff, so you don't have horrible games like Concord, Like, just look how horrible these character models are. They're pathetic. No one wants to play this damn game, guys. No one wants to play Concord or games like Concord. What do you guys think, guys? Companies are going broke because they went woke. Are you surprised by this? Let me know your thoughts and we'll talk about it in the comments. Like the video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you like the video, share the video. And just remember that all roads lead to MWA, men walking away. And cheers.